Welcome back, Union Arena players. In today's video, we're going to discuss Red Asta and why I believe most players are incorrect on how they build and play the deck. Before we begin, I want to quickly mention the survey I've created and linked in the description of this video. Now, the official surveys are going on right now that can be found on the official Union Arena social media channels. However, we never receive any data from these, and so we just don't really know exactly what everyone is really saying. So I put together my own unofficial survey about the game. It's 19 questions, takes around 5 minutes or so. I would be incredibly grateful if you could check it out, share it with others. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear thoughts of all the players all around the Americas, the world, wherever. But anyways, let's get back to it. Red Asta. We need to look at why this deck has become the subject of so many discussions first. Normally, when we receive a new set, we look to Japan to their decks to get an idea on what was played. This time, we can't just copy and paste and expect the same success, really. So let's take a look at a deck list from Japan and what was working for them. Now, we can see they're playing both Astas, the Noct, and the Mimosa. This version of the deck is still tier 2 even today in the Japan meta. There's currently only 2 sets that we have released that are considered to be of a higher tier than this version of the deck, and both of those decks have volume 2 support while this one doesn't. Now, you may notice a card in this deck list that doesn't look familiar. If you're unaware, the Union Arena English version developers have been making balance adjustments and sometimes flat out remove cards that were in the Japanese version from our card pool. Now, this makes for our meta to be slightly different, as some sets are less consistent and less powerful, this set included. Now, I don't want to go too much into this, but I do want to say that I hope this is the last time they do something like this. I understand from a balance perspective while the game is starting, but we're almost a year in, and sometimes we get 2 sets a month. The meta is constantly changing, so hopefully we can just experience the game and have fun when a new set comes out. But back to the main topic. This Asta was removed, and so our decks are forced to be a little bit different. Now, this was a super important piece and was not only a double energy generator, an Asta name for the raids, but also a card with a great ability that could be boosted to 4k BP. So this is a huge deal that they just flat out removed this card, that we didn't receive this. It's one of those things where it's like the deck could have been way better, and maybe it was actually just too powerful. Maybe they did so much testing and they're like, whoa, it's actually way too powerful. But at this point, hopefully we can get it soon in the future. You know, we have sets coming in volume 2, Sword Art, that's going to be insane unless they just remove a bunch of stuff, which is going to suck if they do, but that's neither here nor there. So let's get into some lists, because this is not the Japanese meta, this is the English meta. Let's get into some lists that people have come up with for Union Arena, the English version. Now, first up is the list released by the official Union Arena team on their social media page. This list replaces the Mimosas in the deck with Noelle, Yami, and Luck. I think this is an alright list if you want something to start out with. It's pretty basic. It's not really the best, but I do think it's a solid list. Like I said, it's just something to start out with. Moving on to the list that Kozmic shared. Kozmic is probably the most known YouTuber within the Union Arena space, and no shade to him, but with him doing videos for other games as well as Union Arena, he probably has a lot less time to focus on so many releases, especially since each color has multiple decks within it. Now, as you could tell, if you're paying attention to 2 lists ago, this list is quite similar to the JP deck list we saw earlier. In fact, there's only 3 differences. Now, you can see here that the Noelle, the Mimosa, and the My Magic is Never Giving Up, or the final trigger in this deck, were all just bumped up to 4. That replaced the 3-drop double energy Asta. With a bit of testing of this deck, you can easily tell that there's a major problem with this list specifically, and that's energy generation. This list is so similar to the JP list, but loses out on the double energy generation, which is absolutely necessary with a deck that revolves around a 5 energy Asta. Sure, you can still win with the deck, but it's not going to be competitive or consistent enough for a larger event. Now, for reference, a popular tier 1 deck, also with just 4 copies of a 5 energy card, Purple Bleach, or better known as Renju Rush. Now it's probably just Purple Bleach, but they normally played at a minimum of 10 double energy generation, while this list only plays 6. Now, I'm not saying you have to play 10 when you have 4 cards that are 5 energies, but it's better to have more. Unfortunately, with this list, I just don't think it's going to take you too far, and I feel with this specific list, it may have just been thrown together last second since we didn't get the 3-drop Asta. Now, for the last version of Red Asta I want to go over, Asta and Noelle. Personally, I haven't had as much experience with this list. However, I know upon release, this was the most popular version of the deck due to us having to stray from the JP lists. In testing though, this list always came up slightly short compared to Mimosa or the version posted by the official Union Arena account. If you've had success with this variant of Red Asta, let me know in the comments below and tell me if your list differs from what I have on screen. Now let's get into the good stuff. The main reason I wasn't able to get a video out sooner is because I was in the lab testing this deck, trying to confirm if this truly was a superior version of the deck. And the conclusion I came up to is that this version I'm about to show you has the highest ceiling out of all the versions I've shown you previously. And disclaimer before we get into it, I'm not saying this deck is the best deck. This is, however, in my opinion, the best version of Red Asta when played properly. Now let's check out the list. For the 0-drops, we have 4 Asta, 4 Noelle, and 2 Luck. In my opinion, perfect triggers, and Noelle has an effect that helps you get to your top end faster. Just overall great cards. Now here's the first new card from what we've seen previously. Now, the list has 2 Vanessa, which is the Black Clover version of Euphemia from Green Code Geass. This comes up quite a bit when needing some protection in the mid to late game, and she even has a draw trigger. Just overall can come in clutch. Worst case, you get the draw. Now, we also play 4 of the Step Asta. This card is great to play on turn 1 going second, and placing on the front line to protect against the opponent getting a free life. Overall, great card. Love it. Unfortunately, no trigger, but it really does come up the step a lot more than you'd think. Next, we'll go ahead and look at Yami. We have 4 of the 2 energy generation Yami when it's active, and then 4 of the double energy generation Step Noelle. Now, the Noelle can definitely come up with her activate main ability in the late game when you need her. Personally, it's like last resort anytime I play it, but it definitely does come up. And right now, these are the only 2 double energy generators in the deck. Personally, I would love to add more. However, there's an argument to be had to not play the 3-drop Mimosa because it doesn't have a trigger. Same with like the 0-drop Julius that could theoretically replace the Luck. Right now, these are the only ones I got in there though. Next up, we have another new card in this build. We have 1 Emergency Meeting. It's meant to grab late game removal or cards that are going to win the game for you, you know, like your impact stuff, your removal, raids, things like that. Then we have 4 of each of the My Magic is Never Giving Up and the Demon Slayer Sword. We move on to the top end of the deck. We go 4 of each of the Asta, and if I had to say one thing about each of these, it would be that the 4-drop Asta is great for removing abilities from characters. If you're unsure why, check my last video where I go over official rulings on that. And the 5 energy Asta is great, but just be careful raiding from life with him. If you can, keep him in the energy line unless there's a face down card already placed under the card he raids onto. To get those cards face down, we have 3 Knocked. Knocked is such an important card to the Asta strategy. He is a 2-action card but comes in active, draws a card, and helps Asta get the face down cards underneath for all the effects. Now, the reason we only play 3 instead of 4 is because we want to use him with this deck's final. However, that's not always something that can happen, so you don't want to draw too many of him. Then we play the 2 Yami, and he also places cards underneath your Black Bull cards. He also has a great trigger and is another 4K body for your opponent to deal with. Now, you may be wondering, where's Libe or Liba if you watch the dub? Well, check this out. This list plays 2 Libe and 2 Yuno. Now, this is different from what most players are playing at the moment, but just bear with me. Now, unfortunately, this list can't play 4 of both, or else it might. Libe is a very important card to the strategy for those raid Astas, but doesn't want to be used without caution, as you need to place a card from your hand under him, and it definitely feels worse when you know what the card is, rather than just placing something from the top of the deck. Now, the Yuno is an incredible card. Let's go over it if you don't know what it does. Play this card set to active onto your field. When this character attacks and is not blocked, draw a card. Then he has a win plate ability. If Asta is on your field, choose up to 1 character on your opponent's front line and move it to the energy line. Now that effect is nice and just comes in clutch so much. This card is honestly a huge surprise right now to people, as most people assume that you're only playing the Libe based on just other lists. It also has the potential to mess up your opponent's energy line, especially if they're struggling with energy. You can just push back one of their bigger guys and potentially remove something else that they had, as well as they could be stuck with their higher BP characters on the back line, and it can just put you ahead really fast when you get to draw. That's so important. You swing with the Yuno first, and you just draw because they're going to let the first attack usually go through, and you get to draw off that. It's really, really good. So here's the list all together. Now, be sure to try it out for yourself and let me know how it goes. This list has been great in testing over the other versions. And before I finish, I want to go over a few other options if you want to adjust the deck to your liking. Now, I mentioned earlier that I can see a world where you might want to add an additional double energy generator. Here's a few options. We first have the Julius, the 0-drop, which is an okay card. It's a non-trigger. Some popular decks like, Purple Gios play these types of cards, but honestly, they're just not the best with no trigger. And, as for the 1-drop Mimosa, which is great that it has 2 energy at such a low required energy, she has to return a card, and she also has no trigger, and I honestly don't believe this version of the deck can afford this Mimosa. Now, here's some better options for you if you need to add more. The Yuno does have a trigger, and that's good, but really the Mimosa has a great effect. Now, she can help extend the turn by grabbing a final off the top 4 of your deck, or can grab a special if you really need it. The downside is that they're both 3-drops, which can be an issue sometimes if you're, just struggling to get there in the early game, or, you play all your cards in the back line so you can get to the 3, and then they just get a couple of free life in the beginning. That can be kind of the issue, and that's why, we do play the Yami, the 2 energy Yami, so we can get there faster. But, personally, I think adding in 2 Mimosa could be good, since her ability can just be so crazy. She can just extend the turn. Unfortunately, she just has no trigger, and, just has no effect. Now, again, let me know your thoughts on the list, and feel free to ask any questions about the deck. Be sure to take a few minutes to fill out the survey I have linked in the description, and share it with your friends. And if you like the video, be sure to subscribe for more Union Arena content. I have lots planned for the channel, and I'm excited to put out more videos for everyone. Take care, and I'll see you next time.